Blue Cantrell's story didn't begin with controversy, whispers, or speculation. It began with promise. Born Tiffany Cobb, she grew up with a gift that seemed destined to break her into stardom. Her voice was versatile, her range undeniable, and her presence magnetic. Before she was known by millions, Blue was already making her mark as a background vocalist, lending her talent to major names, including industry titan Diddy. Those early years in the shadows were only setting the stage for her explosive debut. When 2001 arrived, so did Blue's breakout moment. She released her debut album, So Blue, and overnight she was catapulted into the spotlight. The project wasn't just moderately successful, it was a cultural wave. Her single Hit 'Em Up Style, Oops, dominated the airwaves, blasting from car radios, club speakers, and living room TVs across the country. Within weeks, the album achieved gold status, selling at a pace that made industry insiders stop and pay attention. It quickly climbed the Billboard charts, cementing Blue as a force in the R&B world. What followed was recognition on the highest level: 2 Grammy nominations, widespread press coverage, and tours that placed her alongside other rising stars like Ashanti, Mia, and Monica. Blue wasn't just competing, she was standing shoulder to shoulder with women who were shaping the sound of the early 2000s. At that moment, her career trajectory looked unstoppable, but success in the music industry is rarely just about talent. Behind the glitz and acclaim, silent battles and invisible hands often determine who thrives and who fades away. And just as Blue was finding her stride, forces beyond the music itself began to change the course of her life. Whispers emerged, not about her artistry, but about her connections. More specifically, her growing closeness to one of the most influential figures in hip-hop, Jay-Z. Industry insiders claimed their relationship extended beyond casual encounters. They were spotted together at exclusive events, private getaways, and behind-the-scenes gatherings hosted by the elite. Their chemistry, some argued, was undeniable. The rumors intensified when Blue appeared on Wendy Williams' show. The host asked her directly, had she ever kissed Jay-Z romantically? Blue's reaction wasn't denial, it was nervous laughter, hesitation, and evasion. She didn't offer clarity, she didn't shut the rumors down, she simply smiled coyly, leaving the world with more questions than answers. That moment set fire to speculation. Could it be that Blue Cantrell wasn't just a rising artist, but also a woman caught in the dangerous intersection of music, power, and personal entanglement?
He worked very hard to erase you and me.
The timing of these rumors couldn't have been more critical. As Blue's star was burning bright, another young woman was preparing to step into her own spotlight. Beyoncé. Fresh from Destiny's Child and moving into her solo era, Beyoncé was polished, calculated, and strategic, qualities the industry embraced. If Jay-Z was truly caught between 2 women, one bold and outspoken like Blue, and the other careful and image-conscious like Beyoncé, the stakes weren't just personal, they were cultural. Blue herself added fuel to the fire. In her Wendy Williams interview, she made a subtle but sharp claim. She suggested Jay-Z favored younger women who were less worldly, easier to guide, and perhaps easier to control. At the time, the remark was brushed off as shade, but looking back, it reads more like a warning, a reflection of a woman who felt used and discarded. Not long after, Blue accused Beyoncé of borrowing heavily from her style. To her, it wasn't inspiration, it was imitation. Suddenly, Blue's career began to stall. Her label didn't renew her contract, her radio spins dwindled, invitations to major events stopped coming. It wasn't a slow fade, it was as if someone had pulled the plug entirely. Blue Cantrell, once one of R&B's brightest stars, was disappearing from the spotlight. And for those who paid attention, the question was unavoidable. Was this just bad timing, or had someone powerful deliberately pushed her aside? Jaguar Wright, another artist who's since spoken about exploitation in the industry, claimed it wasn't coincidence at all. According to her, Blue wasn't forgotten, she was erased. Wright even suggested the naming of Beyoncé and Jay-Z's daughter, Blue Ivy, was no accident, but a deliberate act of rewriting history. Could it be true that Blue Cantrell's silence was never voluntary, but enforced? By 2013, Blue attempted to resurface. She announced plans for a third album, declaring herself independent and free from label control, but the comeback never materialized. No singles, no videos, no momentum, and then came 2014, the year everything collapsed publicly. Blue was found running barefoot through the streets of Santa Monica in the middle of the night, screaming that she was being poisoned with gas. She was hospitalized for psychiatric evaluation, and the media instantly branded her unstable. Overnight, her story was reduced to scandal, erasing years of achievement and leaving only a narrative of mental breakdown. But was it truly a breakdown, or was it the visible unraveling of someone carrying unbearable secrets? The theory that Blue Cantrell could be directly connected to the origins of the Carter Empire sounds outrageous at first. But when you trace the timeline, align the events, and consider the players involved, the story begins to shift. Blue's career stalled just as Beyoncé's solo career soared. Blue's disappearance aligned eerily with the birth of Blue Ivy, and the whispers that Beyoncé's pregnancy may not have been as straightforward as it appeared added fuel to a theory that refuses to die. So what if Blue's disappearance wasn't about failure, but about silencing the one voice that could have changed everything? Blue Cantrell's rise was dazzling yet fleeting, and that very contradiction still fascinates fans today. She wasn't just another singer chasing fame. Her voice carried a rawness that cut through the polished sound of the early 2000s. When her hit Hit 'Em Up Style dominated radio, it wasn't simply a catchy track, it became an anthem of strength and independence, resonating with women everywhere. Blue had something rare, a charisma that felt untamed, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore. Yet just as quickly as she ascended, her presence began to dim, raising questions that would never truly be answered. Behind the stage lights, whispers followed her career. Some said her outspokenness rubbed the wrong people the wrong way. Others hinted that she had become entangled in a network of relationships that blurred the line between personal and professional. For many, it wasn't Blue's talent that held her back. It was the unseen hands that dictated whose voice was heard and whose was silenced. And in that world, even the smallest conflict could turn into a career-ending war. But what made Blue's story even more haunting was the timing. At the height of her popularity, the music industry was undergoing a transformation. Powerhouses like Jay-Z were cementing themselves as more than artists. They were becoming empires. Every decision, every collaboration, every whisper of association held weight. For someone like Blue Cantrell, navigating that world meant balancing artistry with survival. Was her fall a result of her own choices, or was it punishment for not playing by rules written by others? It wasn't long before rumors of a connection between Blue and Jay-Z began to swirl. The gossip wasn't about a professional collaboration, but something far more personal. Industry insiders hinted at a romance that blurred into secrecy, with Blue carrying emotions she never publicly named. In interviews, her words occasionally slipped into vulnerability, as if she wanted to speak but held herself back. The pain was visible, even if the details remained hidden. Those around her noticed the shift. A once vibrant performer began showing signs of strain, her confidence seemingly chipped away by forces too large to fight. Whispers of betrayal followed her, painting her not as the powerful artist she once embodied, but as someone abandoned in the shadows of an industry that rewards loyalty to power above all else. And Jay-Z, already on his path to legendary status, never addressed the speculation, leaving silence as his weapon of choice. But silence has a way of speaking louder than words. For fans watching Blue's decline, the lack of explanation became the most haunting part of her story. Why did someone with such raw talent vanish so suddenly? Why did a woman who had once been unstoppable now seem erased from the narrative? Was it heartbreak, industry politics, or something even darker that forced her into obscurity? As Blue faded from the spotlight, the music world continued without her. Jay-Z's influence expanded, his career reaching heights few could dream of, while Blue's voice grew quieter, reduced to occasional mentions or nostalgic plays of her biggest hit. The contrast was jarring, two lives intertwined by rumor, yet moving in drastically different directions. For those who believed in Blue, it felt like watching a light be deliberately extinguished. The industry rarely tells the full story of those it leaves behind. Artists like Blue Cantrell remind us that behind every meteoric rise and sudden disappearance lies a trail of secrets, heartbreaks, and battles no one on the outside ever sees. And while her career may have been cut short, the unanswered questions about her relationship with Jay-Z continued to linger, keeping her name alive in whispers long after her songs left the charts.
Blue. Jay-Z worked very hard to erase you and me, just like he did L. Just like he did his relationship with R. Kelly, just like he did his relationship with Aaliyah. Blue, it's time to talk.
But perhaps the most pressing question is this: was Blue Cantrell's silence her choice, or was it imposed upon her by forces too powerful to confront? As the years passed, Blue Cantrell's story became less about the music she created and more about the mystery surrounding her disappearance from the spotlight. Fans who once sang along to her anthems now found themselves asking, where did she go, and why was her brilliance dimmed so abruptly? The industry had moved on, placing its spotlight on new stars, yet whispers about Blue never truly faded. They lingered in conversations about artists whose careers ended too soon, sparking speculation that something deeper had forced her exit. The rumors of her connection to Jay-Z remained central to these conversations. For many, the idea that she had once been close to one of hip-hop's most powerful figures was more than just gossip. It was the missing piece of a puzzle that no one could quite put together. Blue herself rarely addressed the speculation directly, yet her vulnerability in interviews painted a picture of a woman grappling with unspoken pain. It was as though her silence was protecting her, but also imprisoning her in a narrative she couldn't escape. Silence can be both a shield and a sentence. In Blue's case, it became the barrier between her and the career she might have had. For an artist with undeniable talent, the lack of visibility was not natural. It was constructed. While Jay-Z thrived, building an empire of music, fashion, and influence, Blue became an afterthought. To fans, it seemed as if the same connection that once gave her access to powerful rooms may have also contributed to her disappearance from them. The most haunting part of Blue's story isn't just her absence from the industry, but the emotional toll it appeared to take on her. Over time, reports surfaced of struggles, of a woman fighting to find stability while her past continued to overshadow her. Each headline reminded the world of her vulnerability, but rarely celebrated her artistry. The narrative had shifted, reducing her to a cautionary tale rather than honoring her as a pioneer who broke into the scene with strength and individuality. And yet, when people looked back at her beginnings, the brilliance was undeniable. Blue Cantrell didn't just perform songs, she embodied them. Her delivery carried both pain and defiance, making her instantly relatable to listeners who saw themselves in her words. She stood for resilience, for reclaiming power in the face of betrayal. That's what made her sudden absence so devastating, not just for her career, but for the fans who had found strength in her music. But what happens to a voice when it is silenced before its time? Does it fade quietly into memory, or does it echo even louder in absence? For Blue, the echoes never fully stopped. In fan communities, online forums, and whispered industry conversations, her name continued to surface. People remembered her not only for her hit songs, but for the enigma surrounding her. Some argued she had been pushed aside because she was too outspoken in an industry that prefers compliance. Others suggested that her personal life, particularly her rumored connection to Jay-Z, had created complications too dangerous to untangle publicly. Meanwhile, Jay-Z's empire only expanded. He became not just a rapper, but a mogul, a businessman whose influence stretched far beyond music. His silence regarding Blue Cantrell spoke volumes. By never addressing the speculation, he maintained control over the narrative, while Blue remained tethered to unconfirmed stories and unanswered questions. To some, this silence felt strategic, ensuring that the truth, whatever it may have been, remained buried. And as Blue's presence in the industry diminished, the contrast between her fate and Jay-Z's dominance became impossible to ignore. Two names once whispered together in gossip now represented opposite realities, one of unstoppable power and one of haunting absence. Fans couldn't help but wonder, was this simply coincidence? Or was Blue's disappearance part of a larger story that was never meant to come to light?